Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the star of our show, Terry.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Music and Me. I'm your host, Terry, and I hope you're having a wonderful week. I've been having an excellent week myself. So, with Father's Day right around the corner, I wanted to do something a little special for this episode. Last month, as you may remember, I put together an episode celebrating mothers in musical theater for Mother's Day. And as I was thinking about what to do next, it only felt fitting that I follow that up with an episode dedicated to fathers and father figures in musicals for Father's Day. One of the things I love most about musical theater is how it tells stories about relationships that we can all connect with. We've talked about love stories, friendships, family relationships, and personal journeys. But today, I want to focus on the fathers. And not just the dads in a traditional sense, but also the father figures, mentors, and parental influences who help shape the lives of the characters we meet on stage. The songs we'll be talking about today show many different sides of fatherhood. Some are about fathers dreaming of a bright, beautiful future for their children. Some are about fathers trying their best to connect with their sons or daughters. Some celebrate unconditional love and support, while others explore difficult relationships, expectations, loss, and forgiveness. And just like in real life, the fathers we meet in musicals are not all the same. And that's what makes these stories so meaningful. So for this episode, I've chosen some of my favorite songs from musicals that feature fathers or father-child relationships. A few of these songs are longtime favorites that I've loved for years, while others are songs I discovered while researching for this episode. And I have to say, finding some of these newer songs was one of my favorite parts of putting this episode together, because they gave me an even greater appreciation for the many ways musical theater explores family and fatherhood. So whether you're celebrating with your dad, remembering someone you've lost, honoring a grandfather, stepfather, mentor, or someone who stepped into that fatherly role when you needed them the most, I hope this episode resonates with you. So grab your favorite beverage, settle in, and let's celebrate Father's Day through some incredible music from the world of musical theater. These are some of my favorite songs about fathers, father figures, and the lasting impact they have on their lives. So let's get started. I thought the perfect place to start would be with songs about hope. One thing that stands out to me when I listen to many of these songs is how often fathers are dreaming about the future. They're thinking about the kind of parent they want to be, the life they want their children to have, and the legacy they hope to leave behind. So our first group of songs captures those dreams beautifully. Let's start with Soliloquy from Carousel. And if you're not familiar with the musical Carousel, it's a classic Rodgers and Hammerstein musical that follows carnival barker Billy Bigelow and mill worker Julie Jordan as they fall in love and build a life together. Early in the show, Billy learns that Julie is expecting a baby, and suddenly his whole world changes. Soliloquy takes place right after Billy finds out he's going to be a father. What I love about this song is that it feels so real. At first, Billy imagines having a son. He pictures all the things they'll do together and starts dreaming about what his boy might become. Then he realizes the baby could be a girl, and suddenly his entire perspective shifts. Throughout the song, you can hear Billy move between excitement, pride, fear, and uncertainty. He wants to provide for his child and give them every opportunity possible, but he's also terrified of whether he'll be good enough. And I think that's what makes this song such a powerful portrayal of fatherhood. It's not about a perfect dad. It's about a man realizing that someone is going to depend on him and wanting desperately to rise to the occasion. And even though Carousel premiered decades ago, those emotions still feel incredibly relatable today. Next, let's move to one of my favorite songs from Hamilton, Dear Theodosia. Hamilton tells the story of Alexander Hamilton and the founding of the United States through a blend of musical theater, hip hop, pop, and R&B. And throughout most of the show, Hamilton and Aaron Burr are rivals, constantly competing and finding themselves on opposite sides of history. But in Dear Theodosia, all of that is set aside. The song takes place after both men become fathers. Burr is celebrating the birth of his daughter Theodosia, while Hamilton is reflecting on becoming a father himself to young Philip. For a few minutes, the political disagreements and competition disappear, and we're simply watching two dads looking at their children and imagining a better future for them. And what gets me every time is how hopeful this song is. Both men talk about wanting to create a world worthy of their children. They're not focused on themselves anymore. They're focused on the next generation. And I think that's one of the most beautiful aspects of fatherhood represented in musical theater. The idea that becoming a parent changes the way you look at the world. Suddenly, your hopes aren't just for yourself. They're for your children too. And speaking of hope, we have to talk about Wheels of a Dream from Ragtime. As many of you know from my recent Tony Awards episode, Ragtime is a musical that I've become absolutely fascinated with, and I'm happy to say it did win the Tony for Best Revival of a Musical as I predicted, so I was so excited about that. And now I'm definitely going to do an entire episode about the musical Ragtime because I want to learn more about it, and it deserves it because it won the Tony. This show is set in early 20th century America and follows several interconnected families as they navigate issues of race, immigration, justice, and the pursuit of the American dream. Wheels of a Dream is sung by Colehouse Walker Jr. and Sarah as they look forward to the future and imagine the life they want for their young son. This song is incredibly uplifting. But when you know the challenges these characters face throughout the story, it becomes even more powerful. Colehouse and Sarah dream of a world where their son will have opportunities they never had. They imagine a future filled with dignity, equality, and possibility. And to me, this song captures one of the most selfless parts of being a parent. So many mothers and fathers work hard because they want their children to have a better life than they did. And that's exactly what Colehouse and Sarah are expressing here. Every time I hear the song, I'm reminded that some of the greatest acts of love are found in the dreams parents have for their children. It's hopeful, inspiring, and one of the most beautiful songs about family ever written for the musical stage. So these three songs may come from very different musicals, but they all share a common thread. They show fathers looking ahead, imagining the future, and hoping that somehow they can make life better for the children they love. For this next part, I want to talk about something that I think a lot of fathers can relate to, and that's trying to connect with their children. Not every father child relationship is built through grand gestures or life changing conversations. Sometimes it's the little moments that matter most. A lesson, a piece of advice, a shared activity, or even a simple conversation can become something much bigger. So these next songs explore fathers and father figures trying to reach out, offer guidance, and build meaningful connections with the people they love. Let's start with To Break in a Glove from Dear Evan Hansen. Dear Evan Hansen tells the story of a lonely high school student whose life becomes complicated after a misunderstanding leads him into the center of another family's grief. Throughout the musical, we see various parents trying to navigate difficult relationships with their children, and one of the most touching moments comes in this song. To Break in a Glove is sung by Larry Murphy, the father of Connor Murphy, who committed suicide at the beginning of the musical. And on the surface, the song is about breaking in a baseball glove. So Larry explains to Evan that you can't rush the process. It takes patience, care, and time. But of course, the song isn't really about baseball. As the song unfolds, the glove becomes a metaphor for parenting. Larry is a man who struggles to express his emotions directly. Yet, through this simple lesson, he's sharing some of the most heartfelt things a father can say. He's talking about effort, patience, and showing up even when relationships aren't easy. What I love most about this song is that it reminds us that not every father connects through words. Some fathers connect through actions. Sometimes teaching a skill or sharing a hobby becomes their way of saying, I care about you. Next up, we have Hey Kid from If Then. If Then is a fascinating musical that follows Elizabeth, a woman whose life splits into two possible paths based on one decision. Throughout the show, we see how different choices can completely change the direction of a person's future. Hey Kid is one of the most reflective songs in the show. It's essentially a message of encouragement, wisdom, and guidance. And while it isn't a traditional father child song in the way some of the others on this list are, it captures something that I think many great fathers and father figures try to do: offer advice and support while letting someone find their own way. And as I listened to this song while preparing for this episode, I found myself thinking about all the people who have stepped into fatherly roles throughout our lives. Sometimes it's a dad, sometimes it's a grandfather, a teacher, a coach, a mentor, or a family friend. The message is the same. Life won't always be easy, but you can make it through. To me, that's one of the most important gifts a father figure can give: encouragement when you need it most. Now, after a couple of emotional songs, I thought it would be fun to lighten things up a bit with Daddy Knows Best from SpongeBob SquarePants the Musical. Based on the beloved animated series SpongeBob SquarePants the Musical, follows SpongeBob and the citizens of Bikini Bottom as they try to save their home from an impending disaster. It's colorful, funny, energetic, and surprisingly heartfelt. Daddy Knows Best is sung by Pearl and her father, Mr. Krabs. Pearl wants the freedom to make her own choices, while Mr. Krabs is doing what many parents have done throughout history: trying to protect his child, even if she doesn't always appreciate it. What makes this song so much fun is how relatable it is. Almost everyone has experienced that moment where a parent thinks they know best and a child is absolutely convinced that they don't. Beneath all the humor, though, is a very real father daughter relationship. Mr. Krabs may be overprotective at times, but everything he does comes from a place of love. It's a reminder that parenting isn't always serious and emotional. Sometimes it's messy, fun, and full of disagreements, but the love is still there. And I think that's why I wanted to include this song in today's episode, because fatherhood isn't just about the big emotional moments. It's also about the everyday interactions, the advice that isn't always appreciated in the moment, and the little arguments that eventually become some of our favorite memories. Also, this song is hilarious and it's funny, and I thought we needed to have a funny song in this episode. So these three songs show us very different fathers and father figures, but they all share something important. Whether they're teaching a lesson, offering guidance, or trying to protect someone they love, they're all reaching out and trying to make a connection. And sometimes those connections can leave a lasting impact long after the moment has passed. For this next section, I want to shift into something a little more complicated, but also really important when we talk about fathers and father figures in musical theater. Because the truth is, not every father is perfect, and not every father child relationship is simple. Some of the most powerful songs in musicals come from moments where characters are dealing with expectations, pressure, disappointment, or the weight of a family legacy they didn't ask for. These are the kind of songs that really stayed with me as I was researching for this episode, especially a few that I honestly hadn't heard before but ended up loving. Let's start with one of my favorite on this list, Not My Father's Son from Kinky Boots. Kinky Boots tells the story of Charlie Price, who unexpectedly inherits his father's struggling shoe factory, and Lola, a performer who helps him transform the business by creating bold, stylish boots for drag performers. At its heart, though, the musical is really about acceptance, both of others and of yourself. Not My Father's Son is a deeply emotional duet between Lola and Charlie as they both open up about their relationships with their fathers. What makes the song so powerful is how honest it is. Lola talks about growing up with a father who couldn't accept who he was, while Charlie reflects on the pressure of trying to live up to his father's expectations. What I love about this song is that it doesn't try to make those relationships simple or neat. It sits in the discomfort of all of it. It shows that sometimes the hardest part of fatherhood is just being a parent. It's the expectations that get passed down and the pain that can come from when those expectations aren't met. Next, we have Like Father, Like Son from Aida. Aida is a musical set in ancient Egypt that follows a forbidden love story between Aida, a captured Nubian princess, and Radames, an Egyptian soldier engaged to the pharaoh's daughter. It's a story filled with political tension, romance, and questions of loyalty and identity. Like Father, Like Son comes at a moment when Radames is beginning to feel the pressure of who he is supposed to become. The song reflects the expectations placed on him by a father and by the legacy of leadership that he's meant to inherit. What stood out to me when I listened to this song is how clearly it shows the idea of inheritance, not just in terms of status or power, but in behavior, identity, and responsibility. There's this pressure to become what your father was or what your family expects you to be, even when that doesn't fully align with who you are. It's a really honest look at how family legacy can shape a person, sometimes in ways that feel inspiring and sometimes in ways that feel overwhelming. All right, finally, let's talk about Dead Man's Boots from The Last Ship. This is another song I discovered while working on this episode, and I have to say, it completely surprised me and it is so beautiful. I love this song. The Last Ship is a musical by Sting that tells the story of a shipyard community in England facing economic decline and the generations of families tied to that way of life. It's deeply rooted in ideas of labor, tradition, and what gets passed down from parent to child. Dead Man's Boots is all about legacy, the idea that you don't just inherit a job or a place in the world, but also the weight of everything that came before you. The boots in the song became a symbol of the people who came before and the expectations that the next generation is expected to step into. What I found really powerful about the song is how it captures both pride and burden all at the same time. There's pride in continuing a family tradition, but also the heaviness of feeling like your path might already be written for you. It made me think a lot about how fatherhood isn't always just about guidance and support. Sometimes it's also about the legacy, whether intended or unintended, that gets passed down. And in this section, all three of these songs show us that side of fatherhood: the imperfect side, the complicated side, the side shaped by expectation, identity, and the challenge of figuring out who you are in relation to where you came from. For this next section, I want to focus on something that sits at the very heart of so many father stories in musical theater: sacrifice. Because one of the most powerful things about fatherhood and musicals is that it isn't always about what a father says, it's about what they're willing to give up: their comfort, their pride, their safety, and sometimes even their future. These songs aren't just emotional, they're about love in its most selfless form. So let's start with one of the most iconic songs in all of musical theater, Bring Him Home from Les Misérables. Les Misérables is set in 19th century France and follows Jean Valjean, a man trying to outrun his past while protecting the young woman he has raised as his daughter, Cosette. Throughout the musical, Valjean becomes one of the clearest examples of a father figure in all of theater. Even though he is not Cosette's biological father, Bring Him Home comes at a moment of desperation. Marius, the man Cosette loves, is in danger during the revolution, and Valjean risks everything to save him, not because he has to, but because he loves Cosette enough to protect the person she loves. What makes this song so powerful is how quiet it is. It's not dramatic in the traditional sense. It almost feels like a prayer. Valjean is asking for the safety of someone else, putting their life above his own fears and even his own survival. And in that moment, he becomes the ultimate father figure, someone whose love is expressed through protection, even at great personal cost. It's one of those songs that never fails to feel deeply human, no matter how many times you hear it. Next, we have Your Daddy's Son from Ragtime. Ragtime, as I mentioned earlier, is a musical that weaves together multiple stories in early 20th century America, exploring themes of race, class, justice, and the American dream. One of those storylines follows Coalhouse Walker Jr. and Sarah and the devastating events that unfold around their family. Your Daddy's Son is a heartbreaking moment in the show where Sarah reflects on her son and the life he will grow up to inherit. It's a song filled with both love and sorrow, as she considers what it means for a child to carry forward a legacy shaped by injustice and pain. What struck me most about this song is how it captures the emotional weight of parenting in an imperfect world. Sarah's love for her son is undeniable, but so is her awareness of the challenges he will face because of who he is and the world he has been born into. It's a reminder that sometimes sacrifice in fatherhood, or parenthood more broadly, isn't just about what you give up yourself. Sometimes it's about carrying the emotional burden of knowing that you can't protect your child from everything. I also wanted to include this song because I remember my niece singing it a long time ago, and it was a beautiful song. Also, it's from Ragtime, and I love Ragtime. So it's a perfect song for this episode. Taken together, both of these songs show sacrifice in two very deeply but very connected ways. Valjean sacrifices his safety and his own life's ease in order to protect someone he loves, and Sarah sacrifices emotional peace as she confronts a future she cannot fully control for her child. And both of them remind us of something really important, that love, in its purest form, often means putting someone else's needs above your own, even if it hurts. For this final section, I want to bring everything together with something that feels really universal: family, tradition, and the experience of watching children grow up. Because if there's one thing musical theater does so beautifully, it's capturing those quiet, emotional moments in families. The ones that don't always feel dramatic in real life, but end up meaning everything. These are the songs that remind us that fatherhood isn't just about guidance or sacrifice. It's also about love that stays steady through time, tradition that gets passed down, and the bittersweet reality of watching children grow into their own lives. So let's start with No Matter What from Beauty and the Beast. And as most of you know, Beauty and the Beast is the story of Belle, a young woman who feels out of place in her small village, and her father Maurice, an inventor who is kind, eccentric, and deeply devoted to her. I had to include this song because, I don't know, for some reason it reminds me of the relationship between me and my dad, because there's a part where Belle asks her father, "Do you think I'm odd?" And I feel like I would ask that question, but I know I'm odd. And I feel like my dad is a little odd too. So we have that in common. So I wanted to include this because I connect with it. When Maurice becomes trapped in the Beast Castle, Belle goes to rescue him, and the bond between them is tested in unexpected ways throughout the story. No Matter What is one of the most tender father daughter moments in the musical. Maurice reassures Belle that no matter what happens in life, no matter how strange the world becomes, or how far she may go, his love for her will never change. And what I love about this song is its simplicity. It doesn't try to be complicated or grand. It's just a father telling his daughter that she is loved unconditionally. And sometimes that is the most powerful message of all. In a world that can feel uncertain, that kind of steady love becomes something you hold on to. Next song is Something Was Missing from Annie. As most of you probably know, Annie is a classic musical about a young orphan who dreams of finding her parents, and the wealthy businessman Oliver Warbucks, who unexpectedly finds his life changed when Annie enters into it. At the beginning, Warbucks is focused on success, work, and status, but Annie slowly opens his heart in ways he never expected. Something Was Missing comes at a turning point for Warbucks. Even though he has wealth, influence, and success, he begins to realize that none of it feels complete without family and emotional connection. He starts to understand what it means to care for someone in a deeply personal way and how that changes everything. What makes this song so meaningful is that it shows fatherhood as something that can be discovered. Warbucks doesn't start the story as a father figure, but through his relationship with Annie, he becomes one. And in doing so, he finally realizes that love and connection matter far more than achievement. Finally, we have one of the most iconic songs in all of musical theater, Sunrise, Sunset from Fiddler on the Roof. Fiddler on the Roof tells the story of Tevye, a poor milkman in a Jewish village as he tries to preserve tradition while his daughters begin to make choices that lead them away from the life he expected for them. It's a story about change, family, faith, and the passage of time. Sunrise, Sunset takes place during a wedding, and it reflects on how quickly children grow up. It's one of those rare songs that feels almost universal because it captures a moment every parent eventually experiences, looking at your child and realizing they are no longer a child anymore. Except for in my case, because I will always remain a child, and my parents know that. What makes this song so powerful is how it blends joy and sadness all together. It's a celebration of a wedding, but it's also a quiet acknowledgement that life is changing in a way that can't be stopped. As parents watch their children grow and begin new chapters, they carry both pride and a sense of loss for the moment that have passed. To me, this song feels like the emotional centerpiece of everything we've talked about in this episode. Because at its core, fatherhood is about time, how quickly it moves, and how much it changes us, and how deeply we feel every stage of it. So, together, these three songs remind us that fatherhood isn't just about being present in big moments, it's about steady love, emotional discovery, and the bittersweet beauty of watching life unfold. And that brings us to the end of today's journey through fathers and father figures in musical theater. And as we come to the end of this Father's Day episode, I just want to take a moment to bring everything we've talked about full circle. Across all of these songs, one thing has really stood out to me. Fathers and father figures in musical theater are never just one thing. They're complex, layered, and deeply human. Some offer guidance when we need direction. Some offer protection when the world feels overwhelming. Some inspire us to dream bigger than we ever thought we could. And some simply show up day after day with a kind of unconditional love that quietly holds everything together. What makes it even more meaningful is that father figures don't always look the same for everyone. Sometimes it's a dad, sometimes it's a grandfather, a stepfather, a mentor, a teacher, or even someone who stepped into that role unexpectedly when it was needed most. But no matter what form it takes, that influence stays with us. So, whether you're celebrating with your father today, remembering someone you've lost, honoring a mentor who helped shape your life, or recognizing someone who became a father figure when you needed one most, I hope these songs remind you just how powerful that impact can be. And before I go, I want to end this episode with a few very special Father's Day wishes. First, I want to wish a very happy Father's Day to my own dad. Thank you for everything you've done for me, your love, your support, and everything you've taught me along the way. I appreciate you more than I ever really could put into words. Also, a happy Father's Day to my brother, who continues to be an incredible example of what it means to be a loving and dedicated father. Watching you in that role has been such a joy. And I want to wish a very special first Father's Day to my niece's husband, who is celebrating this milestone for the very first time this year. There is something really special about stepping into fatherhood for the first time, and I just want to say how excited I am for this new chapter in your life. And you're doing an amazing job, you both are. So happy Father's Day from the music and me. I want to thank you so much for listening and for sharing this journey with me. And until next time, keep listening, keep discovering, and keep finding the music in your life. Peace out, everybody, and happy Father's Day to all the fathers and father figures out there.
This has been the Music and Me podcast. Subscribe now so you don't miss a beat.